This video will be about why I believe you should train more than one martial art. My first reason would be that when you're developing skill in one martial art, it can be easily transferred to another martial art because the amount of learning you need to do is kind of similar. So for instance, when I do repetitions in jiu-jitsu, it gives me a baseline of how many repetitions I need for a particular boxing combination, for instance. I'll already know how I learn in like a combat context. And because of this, I can do different martial arts potentially. Also, unless you try these different martial arts, you really won't know if you're potentially very good at a different one. So if you never try it, you'll never know if that could be something really special for you. Another reason is that when you're developing proficiency in one martial art, all of the scenarios that art will represent are not all of the scenarios that might happen in a fighting situation. So for instance, our, again, boxing scenario, it's considering the stand-up element of combat. But as soon as a combat situation goes to the ground, then boxing doesn't have much to offer in that respect. It doesn't have anything to offer at all, really. So, the idea that you should just train boxing or you should just train jiu-jitsu, it doesn't give you that one martial art doesn't give you all of the situations that might occur in a given fighting context. Another thing is that when you are training in one martial art, it might seem that you are excelling and that you're doing all this preparation and you're like unstoppable here in this domain. And because you're so good at this one area, you don't need all of the other areas. And this kind of reminds me of a psychological term called theory-induced blindness, where when we are so wrapped up in a given explanation of like how things are going that we fail to see any evidence to the contrary. And I got this term from Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow, which I highly recommend. It's a great book. Another reason is that it's fun to do different martial arts and expose yourself to new scenarios. So for instance, if I was a karate practitioner and I'm used to the footwork and the stances of karate, how can I take that framework that karate has given me and apply it to combat where I potentially have a weapon in my hand? Like say in stick fighting, if I'm trying to do a new art such as stick fighting, how can I take my karate background and make use of all the things I learned there in a new given context? And because I have this stressor that I'm putting on to my combat experience, I might find new avenues of thought, and it might also get me better at karate. Another thing that makes it very important for it to be fun is that it decreases the odds of boredom happening in your martial arts practice. As like if we're training one discipline and people get overindulged with this structure and with this rule set of a given martial art, having a new exposure might like reinvigorate them to train harder. And also to train in new directions, to branch off and really increase their depth of skill. Being bored in your mat time could lead to you having less productive training times. So if I'm on the mat and my mind isn't in what I'm practicing, then that isn't very conducive to me having a good practice. I'm not going to want to give my all into it. If I'm coming there having trained 5 times a week or something in the one martial art, and I'm just now kind of sick of it. It's the 5th day and I've kind of had my fill. It's better to get some exposure and mix things up than to become bored with what you are doing. And this boredom can definitely come about when you're like a child martial artist, and years in a martial art is nothing to you because you're now like 14 or something and you started when you're 8. So that's 6 years of training in like a blink of an eye. And by that 6th year, you're just kind of bored with how the martial art has been progressing, and you kind of need some new stimulus. So it can also help to train a different martial art if you are just kind of sick of the one you're currently practicing. And my 4th and last reason is that when we are considering careers in martial arts, we all will not be able to fight for forever. There's no contest that will always be able to participate in to make money, to make like a livable income. In order to make actual money doing martial arts, we need to get into coaching. And when we do different martial arts, have experience with them, it will differentiate us in comparison to other instructors. Like, as the martial arts world expands, there'll be a whole bunch of people who can potentially become instructors. But there might not be a whole bunch of these people who have experience with like a stick fighting martial art or with judo, and they can also teach jiu-jitsu. These combination of martial arts will really give you an advantage when it comes to the world of instructing. And ultimately, it's like going to go the instructor route. You can practice for martial arts in some given form for forever, of course, but to really make something from it, it's going to be your coaching. That's the best way to do it. And that's the most that's the turn of events that has this clearest shot of leading somewhere, is your coaching, rather than having some super fight that sets you for life. That doesn't happen, especially when you're just not at the very, very top level, and it's still not very likely in jiu-jitsu at this point. Also, when we are able to teach more than one martial art or have experience with more than one martial art, it'll ultimately also provide depth to your students as well. It'll make them have more of an appreciation for combat in general rather than combat through just one dimension. And because of this depth that they'll have, then they'll also be able to develop their own practices and hopefully be successful too, which we definitely want to spread martial arts as much as we can. So this is very important. But these have been my thoughts on this topic of why you should train more than one martial art. But I feel that the most important reason is that it's really fun to do, and it's really a good time to see how you fare in a different context. So it's really good to experience new things. But thanks so much for watching, and I hope you subscribe and like this video.